What's up, everybody? Stocks by the numbers, welcome back. Quick update here with some great news on FuboTV Incorporated, ticker symbol FUBO, listed here on the New York Stock Exchange. Stock was hanging out at about 1:30 throughout the day. As you see, just before 3 p.m., boom, we have a massive explosion. Stock closed $1.53, up almost a quarter of a point, over 16% to go into the close. Still holding that level basically after hours right now. Let's check, actually. Yeah, pretty much just hanging out. So Fubo basically got the news that yours truly was speculating was going to happen. And as you see here, sports streaming service from Fox, Disney, Warner Brothers blocked by judge, basically saying that I believe it was the Clayton Act they cited. And basically they were saying that it is an unfair advantage here. Hold on, I quoted it. Quote, it appears to the court that FUBO is likely to succeed on its claims that by entering into the joint venture defendants will substantially lessen competition and restrain trade in the relevant market in violation of Section 7 of the Clayton Act. And I want to remind you again, we back up here about a year, and you can see we go back. And this is basically right around the time we started looking at it, I believe. Yeah, I believe it was right around here. And you can see, I know it's very messy, but you can see we spoke about Steam Friend. My apologies. You can see that we were in this long-term descending wedge. And also the stock got up to almost $4 here on two separate occasions on its own merits. They started to sell it off, right? They were saying, oh, subscribers weren't growing that much. And then it was like right around here where, no, right here, even though they beat earnings again, this is when the news of that joint venture between Disney and Fox came out, and they've been beating the stock up ever since then. Look at this stock coming all the way down to new lows, $1.10, and now the stock is up almost 50% already just over the last couple of months. But the one thing I want to remind everyone is this was on its own merits, off of subscriber growth, off of getting the bleeding of the losses in check, and off of multiple beats on the revenue side as well. And you can see that as we go into these highs, we have consistent beats, and as we've been entering and continuing this downtrend, we have consistent, steady revenue and EPS beats. So, in my opinion, when the stock was running up here to like 380, again on its own merits before this joint venture news hit, I said, in my opinion, $5, $6 really shouldn't be a problem. It really shouldn't be a problem. Then they beat the stock up and they bring it down, and now you're going to start to see, in my opinion, now you're going to start to see the rally, right? So we're probably going to come up here where we initially gapped down. We're talking, what, 240? And again, if it was worth, supposedly, what Wall Street felt it was worth, if it was worth 380 a share back here, as I said, now after this news coming out on the lawsuit and then multiple earnings beats since the news initially hit, this stock, in my opinion, should now make higher highs, and it should go above this 380 mark. And I'm personally looking for $5, and I still think that's conservative. I mean, we're talking, what, about 200% from this move would bring us up to 4.5, which would bring us to a $1.5 billion market cap. And we can see, look at the beats on the EPS getting better and better. It looks like the quarterly revenue consistently climbing. Look at that net margin percentage now down only -6% from where it came from, was -26%. Look at the growth annually, and also look at last year. The company brought in 1.37 billion. Even if you want to subtract this net income loss from this original revenue number, you're still looking at a billion plus. You're still looking at a billion plus in annual revenue. So even if we trade in line with annual revenue, we're talking about roughly 100% move from this level, which would be $3 a share. If we trade 2 times annual revenue, you are looking at least a $2 billion valuation, which would be potentially a 300% move in market cap from this level, which would bring us to $3, $4.50, $6. That's why I'm saying, in my opinion, that's why I always said consistently, every time I looked at this company, this should easily be worth 5, 6, maybe 7. Who knows? Who knows? Especially now after this point. Because again, the word was out, the company was growing, subscribers were growing, revenue was beating, so people started to pile back into FUBO, and the stock went from $1 up to almost 4. So now, again, they wanted to beat it up off of this lawsuit, but now that potentially that has cleared, we are now going to potentially see this rally back up and potentially higher highs. But I am just so stoked for all of you who put some faith not only in myself, but also in this situation as a whole, because as we always say, men lie, women lie, numbers do not lie. And the numbers on FUBO, in my opinion, have just been getting better and better and holding steady and being very, very consistent. So I think this is going to be very, very good for FUBO. And of course, this is what everybody was waiting for. Oh, that news page didn't load, but Venue's 3 partners said they plan to appeal the ruling. Yep. Let's see. Federal judge blocked the launch of a competing sports streaming service from Fox, Disney, and Warner Brothers. Streaming service filed a lawsuit asserting antitrust claims against the media heavyweights in February, seeking to bar their planned Venue sports service on the grounds that the companies wouldn't allow FUBO to carry a small bundle of sports-focused channels, right? This is basically this was my initial gut reaction once I heard about this lawsuit, right? Because them coming together, trying to get into the space, I mean, we know it happens, and, sometimes larger corporations come together and they try to push out the little guy, right? And absorb that market share. So we know how this works sometimes. But the real catalyst to the story, in my opinion, was the fact that FUBO apparently, approached them and was told that they had to carry other channels, or they were told that they couldn't do it at this time. So FUBO kind of went down its own path and started doing its own thing. Then their subscriptions start growing like crazy. The revenue starts coming in. Now all of a sudden, these 3 companies team up to essentially enter FUBO's space and do exactly what they said they couldn't do just a couple of years prior when FUBO approached them. Right? So that's why, in my eyes, once I read that, I was 90% leaning towards FUBO's side, kind of expecting that this was going to be the news that was going to come out. And as we see, it worked out that way. Ruled in FUBO's favor on Friday. Preliminary injunction halting the launch of Venue Sports. Media reports say the service was expected to launch next week, right? So think about this. If this news didn't come out and this service was allowed to launch within about a week, chances are they probably would have started beating up FUBO again, in my opinion, right? They probably would have brought it back down to the low ones, maybe even sub $1 a share, started to put pressure on the stock. So this, in my opinion, is just not only phenomenal news for FUBO, but it's also phenomenal timing, because it's literally halting the launch of this quote-unquote competitor that was going to come out that supposedly was the main catalyst driving that sell-off in that descending wedge we looked at for several months. In her ruling, judge said it appeared FUBO would likely succeed on its claims that the joint venture between the companies would, quote, substantially lessen competition and restrain trade. This is, in my eyes, exactly what you wanted to hear. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. And this is why, again, I say that I do understand that, we work hard for our money, and if we make an investment, we don't want to see it go down, right? And the stock, what was this? It was down here at earnings. This is early November, and then mid-December, we pop up to highs, right? So look at that. Look at that calendar. We're talking 7-8 months of really not doing anything, being straight down in this wedge, and even climbing out and potentially popping out of this wedge a little prematurely. It's still, not back to where it was. So I appreciate the fact if you bought into this at like 2.5, and you've just been holding, watching it drop down, wondering what's going on, you're starting to get anxious, you're starting to stress yourself out. But this is why I say, again, in my opinion, you have to find the winners, find the growers, find the companies who are doing well and are consistently remaining stable and steady, right? This company, FUBO, has steady revenue coming in. They're consistently been beating earnings estimates. Subscriber count is consistently growing nicely. Ad revenues grow, right? So when, in my opinion, when you see a situation like that, if you bought in at 2.5 and now you're down here at like 115, oh, excuse me, now you're down here at like 115. In my opinion, I said it once and I'll say it again for the nth time. You should be viewing that as an opportunity to accumulate more shares, build a position, and hopefully wait for the good times to roll. Now, I appreciate the fact it was a little bit of a different situation because everyone was kind of just sitting on their hands waiting to hear the verdict of this suit. So, it's a little bit different than, watching something like a Hershey and waiting for it to dip down to a discount and then piling in. But also at the same time, this is why I kept tweeting out and I kept re-mentioning in the Discord that this stock went from $1 to almost 4, 2 separate occasions on its own merits before all of this nonsense came out. And that's why I said not only do I feel confident that the ruling is probably going to go in FUBO's favor, but also that once once that ruling is now out of the way and off the table now, I know they're filing an appeal, but, we'll see. But now that this is predominantly off the table now, this company, in my opinion, should run all the way back up to 3+. We could potentially, again, retest our highs, and we may even break out above this top resistance trend line here. 367 was this key level. And we could break up, we could retest 380+, and potentially get to $4 a share. And I am just so happy that this worked out the way I anticipated. Because again, in my opinion, the company was growing nicely and it was holding steady. Oh, excuse me. Company was holding nicely and it was holding steady. And this news just randomly came out and it seemed like such a blow to the gut of FUBO that was churning along, looking good, growing nicely for everybody. And then whoosh, we bring it down for like 7-8 months. And now the rebound happens. This is why the whole time it was going down, in my opinion, I kept making update videos saying, I don't care where it is. In my opinion, I still like it. If you bought it at 2 and it's down at $1.25, in my opinion, consider adding to the position if you can, lower the cost basis, accumulate shares, build that position. And now we could potentially be seeing the second big rally in FUBO. So if we look here, we can see that the MACD is now right there, basically crossing to the upside on this big jump today. So in my opinion, a retracement back here to this 200-day moving average of $1.96 should be next. And you could also see how we actually had what looks like a bull hammer getting right above that 50-day moving average, stock up today, and then boom, we got the news later in the afternoon that really starts to run up the stock. So in my opinion, I think more and more people are now going to hear about this news, and that's why, again, all of that volume started to come in big. Look at that. Right as the news hit, about 5 to 3, all of a sudden FUBO started chunking up and running. And I know people were also talking about the news because they're on Prime now. Hold on. Here we go. FuboTV Sports Network now available for Amazon Prime subscribers in Canada. Which, of course, is a massive feather in the hat of FUBO. Right? So now you're reaching an even wider audience. But in my opinion, this is now new volume, and people are going to hear the news, they're going to pile in, and that's why I'm saying like $2, if we're talking immediate short term, $2 really shouldn't be a problem. And even from this closing level, you're looking at almost 30% right there. RSI up here, a touch below 64 on the daily, could keep going. I mean, we look at other stocks like ASTS, right? We consistently have these up days. The company keeps reporting these positive catalysts, and it just keeps chunking up. And now all of a sudden, right, the traders aren't looking at the RSI anymore, and everyone's buying into the catalyst and buying into the hypes and looking at resistance levels that the stock got above, right? So sometimes we look at key levels where the stock kind of quote unquote has to go, and we may potentially ignore how the MACD looks or how the RSI looks. So that's why even with the RSI up here in the 60s, in my opinion, that's nothing. So if the volume keeps coming in, you may see an RSI go into the 80s and potentially the 90s here in the immediate short term on FUBO as it tries to retrace back to about $2 a share. And here on the weekly, we can see longer time frame RSI, middle of the road, still below 50, even after this big run up. And we can also see on the weekly our 50-day moving average of 205, which is why I'm saying next stop $2 really shouldn't be a problem. Something like 10 might take a while, right? But getting back to where it was here between like this 3 and 4 range, in my opinion, really should be a layup. It's honestly not a doubt in my mind. And I know some people out there might not completely agree with me, but again, initially we looked at this stock on this channel at around $1 a share, and the stock went up to above 380 on 2 separate occasions. And it was strictly kept down, in my eyes, because of this lawsuit. And now that the lawsuit is passed, and also looks like it went in FUBO's favor, in my opinion, I really don't see many negatives, and this is why I say personally, I think it's still a buy, and my conservative price target is easily $5 a share. But that's pretty much it. I don't want to keep going down the same road. We said what we had to say, but I am just so happy that this worked out the way I anticipated and the way all of you believed it would, because I know a lot of you were looking at the updates, you were looking at the growing revenue and the subscriber growth in FUBO, and you just kind of put 2 and 2 together, and you said to yourself, you know what? This is something that's going to grow. I'm going to start accumulating shares. We had people even in the Discord just recently, just over the last couple of weeks, adding to their positions down here in the 120s to 130s. Boom. Now they're up. They lowered their cost bases, and now you're sitting pretty, waiting for that, what I feel is an inevitable rebound, right? So congratulations to all shareholders. And again, if this was the channel that kind of brought FUBO to your attention and you were able to get involved before this news hit, or now you're going to potentially get involved now that kind of the dust has settled and we kind of like we kind of jumped above this hurdle, understandable. Let us know down in the comments section. But that's it. I'm going to end it there. Once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually very quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that these markets are rocky, they're volatile, they are very uncertain. So I want to wish all of you success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thanks for your time. Have a great weekend.